We gotta finally make the reject pond. This is the place where all of my not so perfect rice fish are gonna go to live out the rest of their days because I don't have the heart to kill any of them. So today we're gonna go outside, we're gonna set up some pond stuff, we're gonna pull some fish, we're gonna move things around. There's a ton of stuff to do. We have a lot to do today. We gotta get this pond set back up. We need to wait for the lights to turn back on in here. Landscaping, oh gosh, and some other pond activities that we've been needing to do for a while now. The next like 4 days are gonna be super hot and the weather's gonna be perfect. So that means we can do a bunch of things outside, but that also means that the AC is gonna be kicking on, the neighbors are gonna be out doing a bunch of stuff. So like, I know this mic is pretty good at canceling noise, but I don't think it's gonna compete with this old thing. Probably gonna have to move this pond into the shade a little bit more. Already hitting 90 degrees at the surface of the water, and you can tell that because we don't have any plants in here, there's a ton of algae, which we don't really want to have happen. Over in our more shaded pond, it's only 80, so a 10-degree difference, a little bit more than that, just from having the direct sun hit the pond for a few hours. On second thought, let's just wait until it's the evening time, because why do I have these on still? It was really hot today. It was like 85. I know that's not hot for everybody, but for me, that's like an inferno. Still working on getting the backyard all picked up. Okay, it's a process. Hopefully that'll shut off soon. Didn't quite get to our shrubs, but managed to move the pond also into an area that is getting beat by the sun, so it's really hot. Not the smartest move in the world, but at least the area where the pond is going to live is in the shade, so if I can grab this and move it, it's kind of heavy. I have this thing sitting on these not treated 4x4s, but they held up pretty good. They didn't get like, they're not rotting out or anything. But we need to get this thing back up on here. These really do help to get a little bit more height, so it's easier to drain the water. And we have some super secure leveling blocks to make sure this thing is perfectly level. This is going to be a little bit of a wonky process, but I think maybe I can do it. All this sand, there's not that much water in it, but I'm sure if we would have drained it completely, that would have helped a little bit. I think that's probably about as good as we're gonna get it. It was almost level. I mean, so close. I don't think it'll really matter too much. Now we just need to put the shroud back around it so it doesn't look like this. Surprised at how well this thing held up. Like, I used interior stain on just like this fence board. Like, I don't know exactly what kind it is, but it looks pretty good. I don't know, for living outside for a whole year. And it's pretty easy. You can just slide it over the pond. We do have to pick it up though, so I'm gonna need 2 hands. All right, got the frame on, but it doesn't sit perfectly like it did in the other spot because the slope is different and we built it specific for this spot. Because this thing doesn't have a back, we can't like flip it around and try and match that slope, which I think we might be able to do if we could do that, but we can't, so we have to, I don't know, figure out something to raise it up because it is sitting on this. But this is the boringest part of the whole video, I promise. I should have also super glued my LEDs back on before we got this in place, but oh well. It was at this point that the neighbor kids decided to come out and play, so we're gonna go to the voiceover. At this point, I'm just drain filling the tub. So it was super dirty, as you could probably tell. So we're just gonna fill this thing up, and we got everything nice and level, kind of. Like, if you look too hard, it looks weird, but I don't think anybody's gonna be looking too hard at this thing. So draining out to the front of the driveway, just trying to get all the junk out of here. I did an okay job at super gluing the LED lights back into place. And as the pond got really full, I needed to break out another siphon to suck water out. And this was an opportunity to actually get some of the physical junk out of there. So after I spent some time doing that, busted out the net to get all the floating junk out of here. This pond just turned into like a sponge graveyard over the winter, not really sure why, but if you'll notice, we also have some like cement cinder block things in here. This is what's gonna help us to prop up our plants. So, and yes, the duck butt is going to stay in here. Earlier in the day, I made a trip down to the local garden center where I pulled out mostly grass plants. So the pond selection was actually pretty good. I'm sure this is like the first shipment that they've gotten in. So a few plants here, just got some kind of medium grasses that get only a few feet tall. Also got some shorter stuff to put in the front, and we're just trying to mix in a few different types of grasses. I think this is going to be a good low maintenance plant selection for this pond because, again, like last time for this specific pond, we did a lot of big things, and those things didn't overwinter very well. So I'll try and do an okay job at showing off some of the tags here. I don't know any of these plants off the top of my head. I just read the description on how tall they get. I thought it would be kind of cool to make use of some of the wood that we have that has been in this pond all winter. Like, it's waterlogged, so it'll all fit in the pond, but I don't want a ton of wood in it. So I played around with a few pieces, kind of draping them over the sides of the shell, and I think it looks pretty cool. I have one grass pot left that we could put in the pond, but I think I'm going to save it for one of the patio ponds, at least just in the meantime. Almost forgot about the solar pump that we want to use, so had to bring this thing over. I think this thing still works. It's worked for a couple years now, and these things, I mean, it's always a different product listing. Like, they show up in the summertime on Amazon, and then those listings just disappear at some point. I don't know what the deal is. These things are also super hit and miss. They're way too expensive for what they are, but they do the job. So I'm not sure, this is probably one that's mix and matched. I've bought a million of these things over the years. I'll try and find a link to one that I've bought this year that I know is actually halfway decent, but these are little pumps. They don't have a ton of power, but even for a pond this size, 50 gallons, it should be okay. It's just to move the water around a little bit. Like, it's not a super important feature of the pond. It's just sort of like an accessory thing. We're not trying to move a ton of water here. Like, it's mostly just a peace of mind thing. And I think it just, I don't know, it just kind of helps. I like to run these things. And especially on a pond like this that's 4 feet long, like, yeah, it does help to move some water. If it's just a little pot you have, then you don't need to worry about something like this. One last thing I want to say about this pond is that it is just a galvanized tub. I've heard people say online that that's really bad for fish and that it's going to leach off metals that can kill your fish. I've never had that experience, but if I were to do a pond like this in the future, I would go ahead and get like a Rubbermaid plastic one just to have complete and total peace of mind. But that's my 2 cents. Never had an issue with these before, but that's not to say that you maybe couldn't. And with that, we're just going to walk this last little plant over, plop it into this little platinum ricefish tub pot thing, and call it a day. It is now nighttime, if you can't tell, but I wanted to come out here and check out, see if the solar lights actually still work or not. It's been a super long time. Boom, it looks like they do. So did a little bit of super gluage to get everything back in. It's not perfect, but I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Like, as long as we get that effect and we can actually see into the pond, that's what we want. It doesn't have to be super bright for you to be able to see down in and see the fish that aren't here yet, but hopefully tomorrow we can get a look at them. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to show you guys the fish under the moonlight or the LED lighting, but I don't know, pretty cool. We'll come back out tomorrow morning, we'll wrap up stuff with that pond, we'll select the fish that are gonna live in it, and then we can move on to the other patio ponds in this area. I was kind of thinking we might come out this morning and see some eggs in our little rice fish bowl over here. The fish are now hiding with all these extra plants in here, but I don't think, we might need a couple more days of the warmer water mixed with more feeding. Actually, there's some right there, a couple. Now that they have more things that they can rub the eggs off onto, obviously this isn't the optimal setup for harvesting eggs, but we're gonna try and make a happy medium with this eventually. Our pond is alive over here. Everything's looking really level. Our solar pump, we still gotta get that panel figured out so that the pump actually runs during the times of the day where the sun is out, but yeah, everything's looking good over here. It's gonna be interesting to see how this spot really works for this pond, because like right now it's getting a little bit of sun from over there. You know, the earth still has to tilt a little bit, so this is primarily an afternoon pond, although in sort of this time in the morning, it's like 9 a.m., it is going to get a partial, like a little bit of light. I don't know, I didn't really spend that much time analyzing this spot too much, which is something that if you're going to be setting up your pond and putting a lot into it, it's worth it to take the time to figure out exactly how the sun is going to hit it. This was kind of like the only other spot for me to put this thing, so I'm just doing my best here. I think the rice fish are going to enjoy it over here. Hopefully the water doesn't get too hot, but there's other things that we can do if it gets crazy to shade it and to bring that water temperature down. But now we're at the point where we need to finally get the fish that are going to live in this thing. Something else that I wanted to do today was get the creeping Jenny into its aquatic form. So we're going to transplant this, get it out of soil, and put it into these little baskets that I got last time. So this is like for an aquatic plant, totally got a bunch of holes in it so water flow better. Also roots can grow out of it. So not something that you have to do. Like I probably mentioned before, I'm a big fan of just stabbing holes into these pots in the aquatic plants that have the, you know, aquatic soil or the clay-like soil. But for this, obviously we don't want to just put this into the pond. I don't think that would work very well. It actually might still work though. I don't know. We're gonna do this instead. All we got to do is take the soil off, try and get it pretty good. I don't think it really matters. You don't have to get this perfectly. I don't think you really need to worry about getting every little piece of soil off of here because we're eventually just going to fill up these baskets with contra soils. They make a bunch of specific pond media type stuff that you can use, but I didn't want to spend any extra money. I'm just using stuff that I have. And it's pretty simple. Just fill that basket up with the contra soil, put the little plantlet inside of it, and then you're all ready to put it in the pond. I'm not sure if the creeping Jenny is going to live in this pond. It kind of goes outside the theme of it all being grasses, but I do think it would look cool if this grew up and over the side. So I don't know, maybe we'll change things up later. We'll ask the rice fish what they think of it and maybe go with their opinion on it. But it'll be cool. It'll grow off into the water and kind of create this massive plant over here. And then of course some will drape over the edge. And I think that'll look pretty cool. As long as normal creeping Jenny is the same as the aquatic stuff, or at least it's the same exact stuff as what we have over here, I think it's all the same. I know there's different types of creeping Jenny, but I'm pretty sure it's all just gonna be fine. It's like aquatic or terrestrial, it doesn't matter because it's a really good, awesome plant. This is an example of a plant that is in the same pot that I bought it in. We just stabbed some holes with a knife and there's roots and plants and all kinds of stuff growing out of it. So you don't need to spend extra money and do the special mesh pot thing. Same story with the iris that we have back in this big pot. It's the original pot, didn't do anything special other than poke holes. And it's been a year, it looks like it's busting out of this thing. I think your plants might grow a little bit faster or at least have a little bit more room to grow. So from that perspective, you might get a better performance out of it if you switch up and put it in a bigger pot especially, but I don't think it's necessarily a requirement for these small ponds. We're not trying to have plants grow out of control, huge, crazy. Unless you are, then you might want to rethink it. But like, for example, the two plants that we have in here, probably a little bit too much. I think I'm going to switch it up and just have one potted plant in here, focus on the breeding, nothing else, so that we can really get as many eggs off the mops as possible. But again, it really just comes back to what your goals are. I mean, if you're not breeding rice fish, then you don't need to worry about any of these things. You can just focus on having it be the craziest overgrown planter pot possible. The fish room will be 50% done in probably like 6 more months, okay? I mean, this place is, I have so much work to do, but we're focusing on this today. It'll happen. I mean, we got the sink installed and it 100% works. See? I just have the water turned off right now, okay? It works, I promise. But check it out. So here are all of the rice fish that we need to pull from for that pond. So we're gonna be going through and we're gonna be finding all the fish that just don't meet the criteria for pushing on the colony of each fish, right? So we have the midnight blacks, we have the platinum rice fish over here, the white ones, we have koi. Those are like the main 3 that we have the most of because those were the ones that we had breeding last summer. So these are all juveniles, they've been inside this whole time. And we just need to go through and find the ones that like don't look as good from a color perspective. And of course a body plan too, like that's the thing that I'm not an expert on. I'm just gonna do my best. And I think for this, we're just mostly gonna focus on color. And then any obvious deformity, like we're not going to continue that one either. But we got to go through, and it's kind of tough because we have to pick out the fish from the top and from the side. So with these fish, we'll just start with the midnight blacks because I think they're the easiest and because there's the most like standout obvious ones that we don't want. So any that don't display like a really dark black color, those are gonna go into the bin, and then we'll just hopefully fill that up with, hopefully we don't fill it up with too many. Hopefully we have mostly good fish that we can mix with our other ones that are gonna be breeding this year, but I think you get the point. Got our little aquarium co-op collection cup, fish box holder, whatever you wanna call it. We need to fill it up with some water, and we're probably inevitably going to get a bunch of duckweed in here. We'll try and pull some of this out later, but fill this guy up, try and get him back out, kind of tight. Set that dude right there, and then I need a net. Where did my net go? I just had it. There we go. So this is probably going to take me forever. At least this first few fish are going to be easy. Like this dude right here, pretty gray from the top. So we're going to try and get him out. Of course, he's faster than I am. I think I need a bigger net. Got that dude. Hopefully you can see this. Right away, you should be able to tell that he just doesn't have, come on, dude, get out of the net. Get out of there. You can see, oh, he's gonna have white fish in the backdrop. Might be kind of hard to tell where he starts and the other ones end, but that's gonna be really hard to get a focus. But basically just a gray fish, whereas, you know, it's supposed to have a deep, rich black color. So I'm gonna go for just the obvious ones. Got another gray dude, get him in there. And yeah, pretty simple. It's something that's easy to do on paper, but not so easy to do in practice, especially, so yeah, I'm just gonna spend the next 5 hours doing this, and hopefully when you see me next, I'll still have my sanity. Not quite 5 hours. I was overreacting a little bit, but here are the ones that I pulled out. So we'll try and get these in a better spot so you can actually see them. Just gray fish, and like this dude had a little bit of yellow on him somehow, some way. There's like a fish in here that was really black, but like a mega runt. So figured he probably isn't good to be involved in anything moving forward. So those are the Midnight Black Madakas, officially cold. There's probably still some fish in here that also shouldn't make the cut. I'm just not an expert, and I'm learning as I go here. So you also have to keep in mind that like a lot of these fish are not fully grown. Like I mean, none of them are fully grown. Maybe that was just because I got lazy feeding this winter, or the temperature was a little cooler than it could have been, which would have made the growth a little bit faster. But these fish should reach full maturity in about a year. I guess a lot of those fish could have been born probably in August too. So I guess it hasn't been quite a year, but regardless, I think that they're kind of at a point where we should be able to tell how their colors are going to be. I realize that it does take a fish a while, especially the rice fish. You're not going to see the full extent of the coloration until the fish is mature and when it's outside. So that is something that can influence how they look as well. So not a perfect process, and it's being done by somebody who's not an expert. So don't judge me too hard here. There actually wasn't that much to cull from the platinums down here. There were just a few that displayed kind of like koi traits. So they had orange on their bodies or their heads. And I don't know if that's a thing with maybe an error of where I got them, or if that's just a trait that pops through every once in a while with the platinum. But I took the ones that had the orange, like in a good way, right? Like an orange head, and I put them in with the kois. Might be a faux pas here. But it just seems like if that's the trait I'm going for, that's what I want to keep doing. So now I'm going to go through what I know were bred from specifically kois, take the fish that don't have any orange or orange where I want it, and then those are definitely going to get put in with these. The koi and the platinum, very similar. It's just that orange head that we're looking for. Here's another example of that. These were I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're plats. I didn't know if they were kois, but they came in that bowl that we had last summer where we thought they were minnows initially, right? Because they came from the minnow pod, but they turned out to be kind of a mix of platinums and kois. Like there's some obvious ones in here that we need to cull that have a little bit of deformity, but there's a decent amount of orange fish in here, which kind of makes it a little bit more confusing. But because I don't know exactly what they are, I'm only going to select the perfect ones that have the orange head, throw them in with what I know are the kois, and then all of the ones that don't possess that, we're probably just going to put in the forever reject pond. Trying to keep the varieties as separate as possible, but this part is a little difficult. Kind of an interesting common deformity that I found down here in the mystery fish was like an incomplete eye. So it looks like a lot of the fish were blind in at least one eye. That was an easy tell. They were also super easy to catch. But maybe you can see on some of these fish, it just looks like they have a cloudy eye, or it's not, it's not colored properly. It doesn't look normal. So forgive the shaky camera here with the focus, but yeah, that was just kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. That's makes me wonder, like, what was up with that bowl of fish to produce that. The eye thing was something that I didn't see in the other two groups of fish that we just culled out. So who knows? I feel like I'm learning a lot right now with the whole process. It could be that those eggs came from a specific time in the year where things weren't optimal for the fish that produce the eggs. Like, who knows? But now we're left with down here some good looking fish, albeit it's a lot less. We probably pulled out, I don't know, like 15, maybe 20 fish in here. I think all that's left to do is go through the kois here, pull out all the ones that don't have the orange, and then we can add all these fish to their new forever home. Oh wait, did we dechlorinate? We don't technically need to dechlorinate that water because in theory all the chlorine should have evaporated overnight. But if you have chloramine in your water, you gotta do something. So you guys know we use the Fritz Pond Guard because it's the more concentrated version of the guard. It's cheaper than probably what you're using right now. And we don't need to use anything like Prime because we don't need to get rid of any ammonia or anything like that. We want that for the plants in the pond. I use the Fritz Pond Guard even on all of the tanks that I have in my house. You guys probably know this. I talk about it all the time. Fritz is a big sponsor of the channel. We appreciate them very much, and I mean, it's because their products are good. And they have the best bacteria in the business, so we're also gonna be adding some of that as well, because this is technically like a new pond or a new aquarium, right? We wanna give even the reject rice fish the best environment possible. And so by doing these couple of things, we're gonna make sure that everybody here is good, and we only need to worry about the sun and the exposure of the pond in this location. So, I mean, that is kind of it, guys. Like, there's not much more to say about this. Like, this is a pond that's just going to chill here and house these fish. Let's get a surface temp 84. It's like 305 right now. The sun is still directly overhead, so this is one that we're going to have to watch. I'll be checking in on it throughout the day here just to make sure. It's not the hottest day ever, but you can see this spot specifically does get a lot of sun, whereas like over here where it used to be, where all of my trees are going to go, it still is shaded. So that was a nice kind of thing about this area, but I think it'll be okay. Once the sun turns over and it gets blocked by the sun, then we'll have this area be shaded just in the later part of the afternoon. So maybe it'll bounce out, I don't know. This pond does have a lot more hiding spots, and as this foliage grows, it'll become more and more shaded. We could also put in like a bunch of floating plants, a bunch of Sylvinia duckweed. We could let that take over here. That would also create more shade. We could also add an air stone. I don't think my little pump here is working so well. These things are super hit and miss. This one's worked for me for a while. I don't know. It might just be as simple as like pinching the wire somewhere and then it all of a sudden works. That's just the way she goes. The duck butt is looking good, and I think the pond turned out pretty okay. Like, it's super basic, not meant to be like a showstopper with huge plants and a lot of color. We could certainly change that about this thing at any time if we want to. I was originally planning to do a few other pond related things with some of the other ones we had out here, but I just have so many other projects that I need to get done while the sun's out. I think we're going to save some of these for another day. We got to revamp this guy. We also need to come over here and revamp this guy. I got to set up the entire backyard still. I got to stain boards and lattices and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up, take a little break. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Had fun with me this weekend doing some outside stuff while the kids weren't outside. Whatever, it's life in the burbs, whatever. But yeah, thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you next weekend with maybe an aquarium video. Who knows? Oh, the audio out here is just so hit or miss, bro. Check it out, though. Fish in pond, swimming, doing fish things. Solar pump still not working. Didn't work today. Kind of a bummer. I don't know. Gonna have to buy another one. Duck butt still floating, and all the fish, I think they're all still here. I didn't count how many we put in here, but high reflection. The time of the day where I get to come out and peacefully enjoy my pond. A lot of landscaping we need to do over here. Maybe we'll show that off in another video, but yeah, man, I'm happy with what we got done today. Something I guess we didn't really touch on was like filtration. The plants are the filter, so that's why we don't have anything. With the amount of bioload that's in here, even if the rice fish got out of control and all of these rejected fish bred and the babies survived and there was a million fish in here, I don't think it would even be that big of a deal. But the plants, the grasses, they're going to continue to just, I mean, who knows how big some of these are going to get over the summer, but they can definitely handle a nitrogen load. I've done this a bunch of times, never had an issue with nitrogen. So yeah, just like a pretty El Natural pond. I think this is something that anybody can set up. And don't forget your grasses next door to your pond to kind of give it that flair. I think I already filmed an outro for this video, so this might be like the extended version. If you made it this far, you're a real one, and I appreciate you very much. So we'll give you a little bit of a clip of in the future, in like an hour and a half, of the lights on the pond and the fish. You can check out how it looks. I have no idea because I haven't done it yet, but I think it might look pretty cool. So thanks again for watching this video. Have a fantastic weekend if you happen to see this before Sunday or whenever this is going out. This outro doesn't make any sense, so I'm just gonna cut to the cool fish footage. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.